The people here walk around almost like robots. Despite everything that goes on around them, they seem so unbothered. It's almost as if they think if they just ignore it, it doesn't exist. Ignorance is bliss, I guess. I wish I could say I do what I do to protect their ignorance, but at the end of the day, I know I'm only doing it for me. So I can live above in my throne, hang up the towel, and just enjoy the rest of my life. But time is passing me by, and like clockwork, another person will never get to see tomorrow. The Case of the Crow Collector, 1203 Cole Building. A place I'm familiar with, as that's where the last murder occurred. I guess the place just breeds violence. I headed straight to the location, which took place in the Echelon Zone, meaning I was an unwelcome guest. As I approached, I saw someone leaving the room the crime had just taken place. So I stopped them to see if they could give me any clues as to what happened. They said they had seen someone of an average build acting strange earlier in the morning. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The neighbor also walked by and I tried to get some information, but they refused to share any with me. I attempted to sneak past the enforcer guarding the door, but they caught me as I entered. So I made a break for the bedroom and hid in the trusty wardrobe once again. The place I always seem to find myself. Since I was in there, I took the time to go through the files to gather as much information as I could on the two living in the apartment, one being the victim. When the coast was clear, I came out to examine the body. They had been violently stabbed to death between 8 and 9:15 that morning. I found a card on the ground next to the victim, a calling card of sorts, with a singular fingerprint on it. This will end up being the fingerprint of the victim, so no help there. After gathering all information on the victim as I could, I looked around the apartment for anything that could be used as a weapon. It was there I found a sword with, once again, the fingerprint of the victim. I started to wonder if she had done this to herself, but without enough evidence to prove either, I had to carry on. I found a pair of scissors with the fingerprint type Q on them, which I had a hunch would be the roommate's fingerprint. Could she have done this? It was then I found a note, written by Violet herself, concerns about being stalked. And in this note was a peculiar grammar error. What could him want? Which at the time I paid no mind to. It also mentioned someone named Edgar, a possible lead. After I gathered everything I could, I headed up to the surveillance room in hopes of getting some Face ID on the footage. The room was empty, but there was also no code anywhere. Luckily, I had brought a code breaker, which I used to get into the camera footage. Oddly enough, it was as if someone had tampered with the footage. The murder took place between 8 to 9:15, and conveniently enough, there was a gap in the footage between 4:18 and 9:48, with only one person in camera before the murder. I thought maybe it was a roommate, but I jotted down their photo to ask around about later. With that being all I was going to get, I headed out. I may have also stolen a diamond as well. I began asking around if anyone knew the roommate's name. One after the other, they either refused to tell me anything or told me useless information until I got the location of her work. So I headed there trying to get the name myself. I knocked on the security door to see if someone was in there, and sure enough, someone said they were coming, but funnily enough, the employee came out of the bathroom, unlocked the door, then went and stood in the room as if he had just answered it. A little confused by how their brain operates, I squeezed by to take a peek. But then they locked the door, and without the code, I knew I'd be stuck if that happened. They unlocked the door and walked out and closed the door right behind them. But not wanting this place to be my final resting place, with quick thinking I swung the door open and hopped over the employee, narrowly escaping my tomb. With no luck, I headed back inside to ask around some more for a name, and as luck would have it, I got it. Neela Sao. Now with the name of the roommate, I knew I also needed to grab the names of all of Violet's co-workers. I only bothered with those who were of average build, as Neela had pointed out earlier. which brought us 4 new suspects, 2 female and 2 male. I attempted to get more information off the company computer, but without a code breaker, I knew it would be tough, but I put my own code breaking skills to the test. Okay, so my skills are lacking. Moving forward, I found the code to the security room and broke in to go through all the files for more information on the employees. All that was left was to get more information on Neela, the roommate. So I headed back to her place of work, and like the sneaky detective I am, I barged in the security room to grab her file, and reading her notes, she seemed like a troubled person, which only made me more suspicious. But now that she's roaming the streets, it's going to be tough to find her. Or so I thought. Once again, as luck would have it, there she was. I tried to ask her some questions, but she didn't seem too keen to share. I knew I had to interrogate her. I just had to do it in a more private place. I followed her for a while, and then as if to try and threaten me, she pulled out a gun. If I didn't already have my suspicions, I certainly would now. As soon as the opportunity arose, I swiftly put the cuffs on her. She wasn't too happy about that and started talking nonsense, which is fair. So I simply walked away until she calmed down, then came back to question her. I tried to get her to confess, but she convincingly told me she didn't do anything. I guess I had it wrong. With that, I removed her involvement in the case. But I still had other suspects to check up on. It was then it dawned on me. The grammar error in the note left from Violet. What could him want? Was that intentional? If so, that narrows my suspects down to 2. Rachel Salmon and Alexanders Vadmir. I knew what I had to do. I grabbed both of their addresses and headed out. First stop, Rachel. No one was home, so I gently brushed my shoulder against the door to open it and took a look around. Around the house was nothing but a code with login information. I logged in on their computer and began snooping. But again, there was nothing. Nothing but V-dating. Rachel's a bit of a dog, it seems. But with nothing out of the ordinary, I left. As I was leaving, Rachel came home and spotted me. He chased me out of his house, and after he forgot I was even in his house in the first place, I tried questioning him. But same as everyone else, he refused to talk. I crossed him off as a suspect. One more suspect left, Vadmir. Up to the echelon zone I went, cutting the security and knocking on the door. As the door unlocked, I was on the other side ready. I smashed into the door like a gorilla against the glass of a zoo enclosure. They were knocked out quicker than Taco Bell will give you the runs. I searched them and took their fingerprints. It was then I realized I had the wrong room. But since I was already in, I decided to take a tour of the place, obviously not finding anything of use. As I left, I apologized, though I don't think he could hear me all the way in Neverland. Poor guy, got hit by what must have felt like a freight train for nothing. Mistakes are bound to happen. Finally, at the right door, I knocked, waited, then barged in again, knocking Vadmir unconscious. I searched him and the place, finding a note about their partner being involved with shady people. Their partner arrived at the house shortly after, and so I knew it was time to go, so I snuck my way out. After exhausting all my leads, I had found myself sitting outside in the rain trying to figure out what I had missed. Was there a clue I overlooked? A stone unturned? The rain hit me like bullets, bringing me to my senses, and then all of a sudden it stopped. I got up and headed to the closest diner to get a cup of coffee and refuel, and then it happened. Another call. Another murder. I couldn't believe my ears. It was not only the same building I was just in, but the same exact room I had just searched hours earlier. Vadmir. I quickly gathered myself and headed straight there. I ran as if I was going to be able to get there in time to save him, even though I knew it was too late. Once there, I couldn't even bear to look at the body, knowing I was just here. If only I'd come a little later, maybe I could have stopped this. I looked around the house for anything that could give me a clue, but nothing had changed since I was last here. Apart from the silence and the chill that someone that was here a few hours earlier is gone. I scanned the area for any fingerprints out of place, and it was then I scanned the card. The same card left by Violet's body. Rachelle. The name hit me like a ton of bricks. My heart sank. I was stun-locked. I was there, at Rachelle's house. I talked to him. He was right in front of me and I didn't stop him. Not only that, I even crossed him off as a suspect. Once I gathered myself, I knew what I had to do. I had to face my failure. And there he was, standing outside his door, as if nothing had happened, like he had done nothing just moments ago. He had me fooled. As I approached, I asked if he had seen anything, and sure enough, he said nothing. He then tried to walk away, which was his second mistake. I immediately cuffed him, and a nearby civilian came to defend him. The ignorance. If only they knew. But to protect their view on the world, I said nothing. I walked away until they calmed down, then came back to search Rachelle. And there was a murder weapon. It's no wonder there was nothing in his house. It was on him the whole time. I interrogated him, and sure enough, he confessed. To think if only he had been home when I came by earlier, I could have knocked him out and searched him and found the knife earlier. Saving a life. That day, though the job had been done, I didn't order my usual gym steader. No, today I didn't want to forget. I made a mistake, somewhere, somehow, and it cost another life. I deserve to live with that regret. Rachelle. Someone lower on the food chain taking out those higher up. To get ahead, no doubt. I can't say I blame him. I know how they treat us, how they look at us, but it makes no difference. There are some lines that can't be crossed. Everyone has a reason for doing the things they do. A motive, whether it be anger, jealousy, or simply just to get ahead. We all have moments where we feel pushed to our limits, pushed up that mountain with one foot hanging over the edge. I'd like to think most would turn around and head back down that hill, but some pass the point of no return. They do what most would find unthinkable. They believe their life is of more value than the next, and would rob someone else of the privilege to wake up and see the sun tomorrow. They make me sick.